Hey gang, my name is Chris Clements. I'm a creative director, designer, photographer here in Austin, Texas, and this is my entry into the Revival Stash giveaway. First one ever. I think it's super cool that Revival is doing this, and let's get into it. If you want to learn a little bit more about me, my website is chrisnclements.com. You can also hit me up on Instagram at chrisnclements to see all of the good things that I do. Long story short, I'm really into travel, fitness, love doggos. You will see some doggos in this proposal in a shameless plug for votes. And then, of course, last but not least, I love motorcycles. I have been riding for about 3 months, so total noob. And I'm loving every minute of it, learning a ton, kind of diving into the great motorcycle community we have here in Austin. And of course, found Revival and saw this opportunity. So here we are. Let's go. Let's first take a look at, the brief. Any good creative project, any good design project has a brief. So we've got a really great base to work from. I think Alan's right. There's some really interesting bones here underneath, all of this that we see in this photo on this bike. There's some really interesting lines to work with. I think it's a really good base and a really fantastic first build bike to work with. So, of course, we're going to dive into what fabrications we're going to do, what colors are we going to do, what is the creative style we're leaning into, and we're certainly going to be looking at something cool. We've got a couple drawings here for y'all, and some story behind the direction. We're actually going to do that kind of in the reverse order, and I'm going to add one thing. We're going to go out and we're going to initially look at some inspiration that I found, specifically looking at how this R1100R has been customized by others, because with any good creative project begins with inspiration. So let's do that first. Let's head over to our inspo board. So reference material. Obviously, you have the entire gamut of very simple modifications to kind of full custom work. So really impressed by some of the examples I found. Of course, a lot of folks turning this into scramblers. There's a great example that has been done over in Germany that it was well documented, and they actually provided some really good reference material on YouTube that detailed essentially the teardown of the bike. So this was really helpful for me, not having this bike physically with me as I'm ideating here. Like, okay, what does it look like when we were removing the tank, the seat, the fairings, the plastics? What do the bones look like? This was incredibly helpful. Just trying to visualize some of the stuff that I wanted to do. Coming down further, I think you can really see how this bike really transforms when you start to reduce and remove and distill down to, kind of the raw components, the basics of this bike. I think some really beautiful lines and angles emerge, stuff that we can start to really lean into, especially within the concept that I'm going to take y'all through. There's some additional inspiration down here, but I think mostly this is just reinforcing the fact that, things often become far better when we reduce and we remove and we draw focus to the things that are most essential about the object. In this case, of course, a motorcycle. So let's dive into the concept. So here's our concept. First of all, this bike is not for me. Absolutely not. This is going to be for my partner, Brittney. Brittney's incredible. She was the one who, during the pandemic, said, Chris, why don't you go get your motorcycle license? It's something that has been kind of in my family. Her father was a motorcyclist for years. It would be something for you to stretch yourself and go have fun and learn something new and challenge yourself and be a little scared too. So, upon that recommendation, I went and took the course, fell in love, of course, got my license, first bike and all that stuff, learning to ride. But she was the one who pushed me to do it. So in a equal pushback to convince her to take up riding again, I want to do this bike for her. It'd be a fun project for us to collaborate on. She has a fantastic eye as well. I often say she's my best editor and creative director. So we would be collaborating on this bike, but the ultimate vision is to give it to her. Interesting stuff about Brittney. Here's the doggos, by the way. You can see Gus here on our left, and Ginny is a puppy on the right. So if you love doggos, vote for this entry. So a little bit about Brittney. She's a little bit petite, right? Small but mighty. 5'2", 28.5-inch inseam. So if she were to go out and buy a brand new bike, not a whole lot of bikes are optimized for a more petite rider. So in the absence of a lot of bikes that can fit there, let's build one. So again, creative styles and direction. We're going to customize this for Brittney. We want to focus on cleaner lines, refinement, celebrating what's awesome about this bike. I want to do a little bit of work to pull focus forward from where it's sitting right now. I feel like it's sitting kind of rear seat into this massive fender on the bike right now, which we can get rid of. And let's lean into a fun, this is Texas, and then the name of the bike is Brittney's Desert Sage. Let's lean into a little bit of this kind of classic roadster feel. Let's get some colors out of the way. We're gonna do a silver sage metallic. We're gonna do a really beautiful brown tan leather and I love this cross stitch pattern. Let's do that, and then let's hit it with some silver and chrome accents where we can. The build tenets here, I think, is really important to remind ourselves: simplify, refine, physically lower. That's going to be really important for Brittney to be able to feel really comfortable on this bike. I want to pull the visual balance forward. I said again, I think the eye is kind of sitting right here. I don't think it should. I think it should be sitting kind of center towards the the engine and the fuel tank and the forward part of the seat. So I think with the modifications that we're proposing here, we can do that. And of course, something we want this to be achievable, so we're not going to the absolute ends of the earth to customize this thing. We want to do something that is, especially for a first build, achievable. So let's get into some details. Fabrications, of course, we're going to do a modified shape, smaller tank. We're going to reduce the rear frame overall size. We're going to remove, rear seat and all of this kind of mounting rack and all of this fairing and stuff. It's going to go away. I think what this does is allows us to open up an opportunity to create kind of an indent to physically lower the seat height on this bike for Brittney. I think it's really important to do that. And I think we've got a really good opportunity here because the airbox has already been removed to create some custom housing for componentry, battery, things like that, while kind of having that blend into the new rear fender that we're going to do. We're going to do other things to clean it up, removing the passenger bracket and pegs. We are going to, of course, need to do some sort of attached license plate, brake light, turn signal assembly in there. We'll figure that out, of course. But additionally to the fabrications, I think important things to consider: bar and mirrors, lower handlebars. How do we get those handlebars lower and towards Brittney on the bike a little bit more? How do we add some fun chrome details? Let's take the current exhaust that's there because it's a custom revival exhaust. Let's keep it and let's maybe wrap it to give it a little bit of texture. Refining, replacing the gauge cluster. How do we reduce the complexity of kind of the rider cockpit and distill that down to a simpler experience? We could black out the front forks to even further draw focus to the engine, the chassis, kind of the custom frame with the custom tank and seat and all that stuff. So I think it's a great concept. I think it's super cool. I think Brittney will love it. And it's really fascinating that, how much the needs of a specific rider can drive a design execution. So this is it. This is Brittney's Desert Sage, and I think it's going to be great.